Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. Our team's been poring over the, I guess you'd call it, bill draft that the Senate has put out regarding, I don't even know what you'd call it. So this is a firsthand impression of what we're seeing here at in the evening on the 21st of June. Okay, so the bill draft's just come out. I'm going to hit a share screen. I'll put that up there for you. But again, we're going to operate under the auspices. What's this going to do to prevent scenarios where somebody goes nuts and hurts other people? Okay, so let me hit the share screen here and we'll begin. Okay, so what we're looking at here is page 25, and I'll put a link. We'll include a link so that you can see what's going on here. What we've got is page 25 of the bill draft, and we're talking about firearms. So the first thing that they're talking about, of course, there are obviously many other pages, but I'm just going to walk down to the quick concerns here. That doesn't mean that there aren't other concerns on other pages, but this is a few of the things that we gleaned as we first popped through here. There's all kinds of spending. I mean, all kinds of spending. Some of it might be very good. I'm just not sure yet. Some of it might enhance programs that have value, but I'll walk through real quickly the things that are the issues that stare out at us. So firearms here, the improving the NYX examination of juvenile records. From what I can tell, this is basically we need to be looking at anybody that's 20 and under, and what that looks like. And if you'd read down through here again, I'll provide the link. It's a little mumbo jumbo, and some of it's pretty straightforward. They're really keying in on what's happened as a juvenile and what this looks like, along with it appears to be layers of reporting and the things that go along with that. So we need to dive into that very carefully. Again, preliminary concerns here are, well, the first thing that I would tell you is does this really adequately look into juveniles who've had a rough time of it, that are struggling mentally with some things, and we'd like to see them get help, and what is their mental stability? Or are we basically saying, hey, we really don't want anybody to own a weapon below the age of 21, although we're quite willing to send them into the meat grinder in service to the country. So we got to be very careful how we flesh those things out. I don't have a fundamental problem personally with discussing them, but I really want to understand what they are. And so this is a little bit of gobbledygook at the moment. Let's skip down to page 31. I started having a real problem with this. This hits home very hard for me as a dealer of firearms, so I understand some of these things. So defining engaged in the business. So it looks to me like this is an attempt to redefine what the business of firearms is and isn't. And they're going to do that. One of these ways is by saying right here in paragraph 21C, by striking with the principal objective of livelihood and profit, they're going to get rid of that to say predominantly earn a profit. Well, what does that really mean? Does that mean the IRS is going to report whether the dealer did well or didn't do well? Does that mean that a person has a personal collection that they've had and they've grown for 20 years, 5 years, 30 years, whatever else, and they intend on selling some of those items for more than what they paid for them, which is the same thing you do with classic cars or classic firearms or an antique cherry pitter on eBay, whatever it may be. I mean, where is it in the American ethic that we're supposed to sell it for less than what we paid for it, especially since it's appreciated in value? So I'm very, very critical of what I'm seeing here. I don't know if they're trying to basically run dealers out or they're trying to force individual collectors into scrutiny from all aspects of federal government regulation, having to jump through the hoops of whatever it would take locally in your jurisdiction or your locale in order to be properly permitted to do so. I mean, lots of complications here. And oh, by the way, back to the beginning, what does a dealer or the status on whether they sell for profit or whether they're doing well or not in their business financially, what does that have to do with the protection of children? I think we should be asking those questions all the time, because I'm not sure how this translates at all to any of those things. In fact, I can tell you, if you aren't picking up on it, it doesn't. So we should be very concerned about that. I had a note here that I wanted to talk with you briefly about Page 37, straw purchasing of firearms. This one's a cherry. We keep hearing that there's a problem with straw purchasing. And I think that it does happen from time to time. And what a straw purchase is somebody who's prohibited. Let's just say a felon can't go in and buy a firearm. They're not going to make it through this background check. They're immediately pinged. Sorry, you can't do this, and you know it. Get out. And if they knowingly come in and do this, knowing that they're felons, they've lied on this federal document, and they're in all kinds of trouble financially, risking prison, all these other things. But here's the funny part. The straw purchase happens when this 3-time felon or whatever it is gets out of prison, finds a love interest. And this is a generalization, but I'm telling you, this is how it plays out. Finds a love interest, talks her into going in and getting the firearm that he can't buy. Well, I'll go give you the money, sweetheart. You go buy this. And he gets the firearm. And then he goes off to conquer other love interests, and he's not around anymore. And then ATF or somebody finds out about it, and they go to this woman who's now got no man in the home, has 3 children that she's trying to support, and looks at this thing and says, am I going to take this woman who has got 3 kids to support, no father figure in these children's lives that's in the home or whatever else, and I'm going to send this person to Leavenworth? I'm going to send this person to federal prison. Well, they don't prosecute these cases. This is one of the things they're not going to talk with you about. But the fact of the matter is they talk about cracking down on straw purchases. And what they find out is there are a lot of people who got buffaloed or stupidly said yes to something, to a love interest that they should have said yes to. And what happens is federal prosecutors say, I don't want to do this. I don't want 3 kids ending up in the foster system because I sent mom away. So whether you agree with me or anybody else on this matter or not is irrelevant. These cases aren't prosecuted because they're overwhelmingly falling into this category of purchasers. And so they're not going to act on them. So it's a sham. If you ask FBI, if you ask ATF, if you talk to the federal government and you look at this stuff, they do not prosecute these cases. So I'm a little tired of hearing about straw purchases and how much emphasis we need to put on it. If you're not going to prosecute these cases, now maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, but that's just the truth. They don't prosecute these cases. So moving on, page 46 was trafficking. I thought that this was kind of interesting, trafficking in firearms, and you can move down here. Forgive me scrolling. I know that this is moving by your screen pretty quickly. What was it? Trafficking in firearms. Oh, this is a good one right here. Prohibition on firearms and ammunition transfers to agents of drug cartels. Let's get real. Who has trafficked more guns to Mexican drug cartels than anyone else? It's called the federal government of the United States, primarily through ATF. It's called Operation Fast and Furious. It was a absolutely overwhelming failure. And all we did is we armed drug cartels with American weapons, and we forced dealers in the Southwest of the United States to go along for this ride in the hopes of supposedly trying to find out where they went. I'm not sure I buy any of that. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I'm not sure. It really bothers me that the federal government would not know, but they wanted to fund them and they wanted to arm them indirectly and directly. So I thought that this was kind of laughable when they started to beef up selling arms and ammunition to drug cartels. If this is happening through regular dealer networks and drug cartels are paying standard retail or then some for these things, I'm not sure that that happens very often. If it does, I think that, again, you can prosecute what you've got. I'm really not sure what that's in there for. And since lots of legislation is inherently bad, let's work through this with a fine-tooth comb. So let's move down here to page 51. I had a note about that. Funding for existing ATF anti-straw purchases. So they're going to throw $1 million for each of the fiscal years, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27, to continue and expand efforts with existing partners to educate persons licensed. So basically they're saying they need another $1 million for the next several years to educate dealers on the straw purchases. Again, I have a hard time biting that one off for no other reason than maybe you should start prosecuting some of the crimes that you have. Maybe you should act on those. I'm not sure we need to spend $1 million of tax money each year on educating the dealers on things that they apparently seem to know more about than the ATF or often do. That's a fundamental problem. Misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. So they're trying, this is the boyfriend loophole that you hear about. And they're walking down through here what this looks like to give you an idea of what the problem is. Let's say Jane goes out on a date with Joe, and then Jane has a complaint or a problem with how she's treated. And sometimes this does happen. You know, we have to be very careful about this. And sometimes it's a person that's scorned too. We have to be very, very careful about that. So with the issue here is well, how do you define a boyfriend? How do you define a relationship? And they're saying here that they're going to qualify this by the length of the relationship, the nature of the relationship, and the frequency and type of interaction. Well, that's fine, but that still means that apparently, from what I can read, a casual acquaintanceship or ordinary fraternization in a business or social context does not constitute a dating relationship under subparagraph A. Well, what if Jane goes out with Joe and she has the time of her life on this date, or she thinks she does? Joe says, no, thanks. You're not my type. I don't want to do this again. But he's stupid enough to have traded numbers with her or some sort of social messaging, texting or messaging app, right? And so for the next 30 or 40 days, Jane sends him gushing messages or whatever else. And the judge says, well, she clearly thought she was in a relationship with you. And Joe says, dude, I thought that I didn't want anything to do with her, which is why we never went out a second time. What happens then? Does the judge say, well, she thought she was in a relationship, therefore she was? We don't know that. I mean, there are some problems not being able to define this. I mean, right now, you've got a nation that is basically saying, or part of a nation that's saying, I don't understand what constitutes this moniker or this pronoun. I think that you're going to have to be very, I think you have to be very narrow then if we're asking these kinds of questions. And I'm not saying that they're bad or good. I'm saying if we're asking these kinds of questions, we got to be very narrow about what this constitutes. And I'm not sure what I'm seeing here is actually that helpful, which is what makes this so sticky to begin with. Maybe there are good ways to do this, and maybe we should be considering those in earnest. I happen to think maybe we should, but I don't believe that this looks to be so far as a really good way to do this. So I'm not impressed with this language. I think it needs more fine tuning, or we need to drill down on the heart of the matter a little bit more. Page 52, we covered that. Page 55, I didn't understand this. Maybe this is common with what happens with some of these bills where they throw in other stuff to see if we can get it passed, or we hang other things on there. Title 3, other matters. Okay, extension of a moratorium, Medicare improvement fund. Somebody must have had a problem or an error in text on another bill. So we're going to throw in Medicare improvement. In the Luke and Alex School Safety Acts, there must have been a problem with somewhere with the language. So I don't know if this is something that's designed to beat other people over the head, where if Joe Blow, senator, doesn't vote for this, then the other side could come and say, they voted against Medicare. They voted against the School Safety Act. Look at them. This is typically what happens, oh, by the way, in politics. And so it's really kind of lousy. You got to watch this. So, and then the last one I want to touch on real quick, and I'll let you go. I know that this is in the evening when I'm recording this and everybody wants to take a peek. It's been a long day for me and I'm running out of spit here. I need to get a drink. I don't know if there's a glass of water running around here or what. Bear with me. Amendment, East of Funding Division Appropriations. Oh, looks like there's a lot of expenses here that are thrown in, and salary expenses. What I was curious about on this page, it's the FBI's NYX Check, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. So they're wanting to throw another $100 million at this to remain available until expended to meet additional resource needs of the NYX system. Maybe that's good. Nobody wants to call up the FBI and have them not answer the phone on the other end. As a dealer, I've had to make several of those calls to call in background checks for people who didn't come with a permit already in hand, which is fine. And there's a lot more people out there carrying on and using a constitutional basis. So if they do choose to purchase, then I need to call at the moment of sale. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I encourage people to consider that. I don't know how far $100 million goes. And to be completely frank, and this is a small sample size, but I've never called FBI, no matter what day of the week it was when we were doing this, and them not answer to go through a background check. Now, I can tell you, I've talked to retailers that are doing like Black Friday, something like that, where there is a ton of business, and it's a very heavy holiday, and everybody's off on vacation from FBI because there aren't as many people that want to work then. So there may be situations where they need a little bit extra help. I don't know if $100 million is what it's going to cost to get that extra help. So I'm not sure whether they anticipate a heck of a lot more workload, but $100 million is a lot of scratch, I'll tell you that. And so it's a little hard to say yes to that. Then below that, you've got $1.4 billion to be doled out through law enforcement circles for down to the states and various jurisdictions for other things like that. Again, I haven't drilled down to see exactly what those things go for and under what circumstances. So I don't know about that, but I wanted to check off a few of these boxes real quick and get some information out to you. It looks like there are some of these things that you could say as you went down through them that they may very well help they may very well help kids stay safe. And since the premise is do it for the children, some of these components may do that. I'm not sure, but I can tell you though, there's some in here that absolutely won't. I don't know what monkeying with the definition of a dealer and their profitability will or won't do, or whether we're forcing people that have private collections, whether they own 2 guns or 200, into some of these new roles. So that you can scrutinize them further than they are, even with irony. They're basically recognizing through this document that they're legitimate, that they're not felons, and that they're not knuckle draggers, and they don't have a fleet of stolen firearms. They just want more scrutiny. They just want more government intervention. I'm not sure how people who have campaigned on having less government and less onerous government are going to be able to vote for this and still expect their constituents to back them up. So we need to be thinking about that too. And again, some of these items have absolutely nothing to do with the safety of children, mental health or age concerns or maturity concerns, mental health concerns. So I think there are some items that immediately need to go. My guess is the majority of this probably needs a really hard look, and there might be a component or two worth talking about. Overall, it looks pretty poor. So I'll hit the stop share button and we're back to you look at my mug. I'll make it short so you can get on with your day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the Iowa Firearms Coalition. This has been a down and dirty quick intro on what's going on at the moment. It's subject to change at the moment. I'm sure it'll maybe within 24, 48 hours, it may look different than this. But right now, that's just a few of the high points we wanted to share. So we thank you. As always, support the Iowa Firearms Coalition. We support you. Thank you.